Hello, my boils, my ghouls, and my zoos. Welcome back to Clash Kamaz. So, today we're going to be talking about a little more West German stuff. Well, really a lot of German stuff here. I thought I would throw on the raindrop since we're going to be talking about so much West German stuff, and maybe we can reignite the East Coast, West Coast rap battle. Tupac was a New Yorker. Let's get that straight. All right, today, like I said before in the last C93 episode, we're going to go through a bit of the history, and I did prepare a script, so today, I'm going to just try something a little new. You know, we're going to go through and I'm just going to read a script here. That's how it's going to be today. You know, I don't need to act like I didn't write the thing. I don't need a teleprompter acting like I remembered all this. Really, I mean, the information is the most important part, and we're going to continue talking about this guy, and we are going to talk about the lineage of where this came from. So, let's get to it. So today we are really talking about a family of rifles developed by Heckler & Koch. Heckler & Koch, or HK as we call them, was founded in 1949 by a group of engineers formerly of the German Royal Armouries arms manufacturer Mauser, which was founded by King Frederick I of Württemberg, July 31st, 1811. Now, it was not originally called Mauser. It was originally called the Königliche Waffenschmieden, which would mean Royal Weapons Forge. Of them, the amazingly named Peter Paul Mauser had a particular aptitude for improving upon designs, making them more efficient in manufacturing as well as user operation. This story is not about Mauser, so we are going to skip to the end in which the Royal Weapons Forge was acquired by the Mauser family, eventually opening the company up to the stock market with a 50% ownership of FN of Belgium. That would be the FN that we all know today, you know, making things like the P90. The newly formed Mauser AG would go on to produce rifles for both the German military as well as civilian markets for both domestic sales as well as imports. Eventually in Mauser's history, actually, we're going to put this how Commando Blog would put it. A German government in the 1930s and 40s did some stuff. And by the late 40s was split and controlled under occupation, half by the Soviet Union, half by the US, France, and UK in response to the German government doing mean stuff. Yeah, I gotta like please somewhat of the algorithm. I can't, you know, there's not, I can say certain words, but man, you say it too much, they'll fuck you over for real. So you get what I mean there, right? Well, we don't need to go into that. We all know, because they're back. The same year, the founding of the interim occupational governments of East and West Germany, the company Heckler & Koch was founded in the West by former engineers of the previously mentioned Mauser AG, initially producing machines and tooling for manufacturing, bicycles, sewing machines as well. You can actually find HK sewing machines. Pretty crazy. A couple of these engineers, formerly working for the Third Reich, still had a desire to produce weapons. The same year HK was founded, the engineers would take on a contract from the Spanish government to produce weapons under the government-owned Centro de Estudios Técnicos de Materiales Especial, better known as CET. Under the Spanish employ, they would also produce celebrated designs such as the MG82 Amelie, a copy of the British Sterling called the CETME C2, and the grandfather of the rifle we're about to talk about today, which would be the CETME Model 58 Modello A prototype, eventually being produced as the Modello 58B or Model B. Sorry, bit of a mouthful there. Eventually, Germany was allowed to produce weapons by their occupational forces, giving birth to the high-quality East German AKs that we know and love, and in the West, HK would produce designs originating from the Modello 58, with a few changes dubbing the rifle the G3. Producing the G3 for both export as well as the newly formed Bundeswehr. After a purchase of a number of CETME rifles for testing, the rifle would use the groundbreaking system designed in the 1890s by Ferdinand Mannlicher, yes, that Mannlicher, roller delayed blowback. That would be this famous system that you've heard about with these rifles. similar to the roller lock system in the MG42 used by other famous German Minis, the system looked to mitigate certain design disadvantages used in the most common form of firearms operations, direct blowback. The most popular machine guns at the time would be submachine guns. You see that with the Americans and the Germans at the time, as well as, famous Russian examples like the Papa-Shah and stuff like that. Most notably of the features they were looking to mitigate was the carrier mass, which obviously results in increased recoil. So here is where I really had to get into some notes, because roller delayed blowback is a pretty difficult system to really kind of imagine in your head, and it can be a bit difficult to describe. So I did use a variety of sources and kind of came up with like the best and most simple way to say it without getting into some really technical details that really aren't too important to this whole talk. So I'm just going to go ahead and read this off. This was from actually a combination of some stuff from SDI, HK, a gun builder I use, as well as just looking around at actually just different articles on Wikipedia about different operating systems for firearms. So it's I kind of pulled these notes out of it, like an amalgamation of those, and I didn't copy any sentences. That's fucking plagiarism. But I really tried to meld this into the simplest way to say it. So this is a closed bolt system in which rollers are pushed under pressure from the case that was just fired into the carrier into a part called the locking piece, which delays the blowback of the carrier while forcing the spent case out from a combination of its own pressure with assistance from an ejector spring, all working in concert to then cycle the carrier back before being driven forward under spring pressure and picking up a new round out of the magazine, forcing it into the chamber. That would be in full auto operation, obviously. It's notable that the gas does not force the carrier back, eliminating the need for a gas system. So the gas is really only activating the rollers, which, as I said, it completely removes the need for a gas system and allows the mass of the carrier to be reduced, resulting in lower recoil and increased accuracy, apparently. I actually do get really good results out of this thing. It is a very accurate gun. G3s, they're very accurate guns too. If you get into that whole FN FAL G3 thing, I am actually more of a G3 lover myself. I know some people are like, fuck those pieces of shit. I like them. I think they're fucking cool, man, but I like these janky pieces of shit. So this system is inherently complex and expensive to manufacture. However, when it's tuned correctly, can produce some really, really, really pleasurable shooting results. It does take a bit of tuning to get this thing to run, honestly. You got to tune the rollers, got to tune the ejector, and your first try building one of these, yeah, that might be your headache right there. That might be your headache. Because, also, just, if you chop the rifle down, you can't just go. It's not going to work like that. It's not like an AK where it's just going to give you a fucking blast, It's just not going to cycle. This video, it's about a family of rifles, but it's not inherently about the CETME or the G3. However, it should be noted that this system developed from the G3 did not start as a gasless system. It was originally prototyped using a roller lock system around the 7.92 by 33 Kurtz cartridge derived from the MG42, but instead using a piston and traditional gas system. So the 7.62 by 51 NATO cartridge was a requirement of the West Germans and is how the Model A CETME came to be chambered in a NATO cartridge. FN FALs were also fielded under the designation of G1s, and during the trials also competed against the AR-10, which was designated as the G4, and a SIG SG-510, which was designated the G2. finally formally adopting the G3 battle rifle in 1959. HK's developments directly correlated with both military and consumer markets, with the development of the AR-10 and AR-15 by Eugene Stoner and Jim Sullivan in 1964, coupled with the success of the newly fielded 5.56 by 45 cartridge by the Americans. The West German designers sought to develop their own 5.56 rifle. Within just a couple years, HK would unveil and the Bundeswehr would adopt their new 5.56 development dubbed the HK-33. Using the same roller delayed blowback system as the G3, the HK-33 would see wild success and popularity in both domestic military as well as the export market. The rifle would see a few variants, most notably the HK-33K, which would feature a 13.1 inch barrel rather than the standard length 15.4 inch barrel on the full-sized 33. There was also a box-fed light machine gun dubbed the HK-13, as well as a belt-fed HK-23. Most famous of these variants arguably would probably be the HK-53, the 8.3 inch barrel with furniture taken directly from the MP5. With the success of the HK-33 came interest from the civilian market, leading HK to develop a semi-auto variant called the HK-43, featuring a 16.9 inch barrel, so basically a 17 inch barrel. Pretty interesting. So I do have to go a bit to notes here. You may be noticing a theme with the nomenclature of these rifles, so let's digress quickly. The internal naming system is largely due to make it easier to distinguish marked parts internally, as well as just plain old marketing. It sounds cool. It should be noted though, at times HK can be a little loose with these designations, so let's go through this real quick. You know, every gun you're going to hear referred to as an HK something. HK obviously means Heckler and Koch. Most rifles will start with the prefix unless it is intended to be a service rifle, which the prefix would start with AG, as in G3. More rare is the AG prefix, which means the weapon comes with a factory with underbarrel attachments such as a light or a grenade launcher. Other prefixes you'll see would be MP for machine pistol, MG for machine gun, VP for Volkspistol, or People's Pistol in English. And later on, you'll see prefixes such as USC and UMP, which means universal. It was basically a marketing tactic when they were trying to replace the MP5's place in the market. This is just a handful of prefixes, but really there aren't too many more. Now here's where I really got to read off of notes, because here's where it starts to get into more of a list. The numerical designations called work number, or work number or plant number, makes reference to the weapon's technical details. The first generation of the gun will not use a number to designate it, but subsequent revisions will use a 1, a 2, a 3, denoting its generation. So, if it's a, second generation rifle, it will start with the prefix 2. That's mostly internal. For marketing purposes, you don't really see that ever, really. Okay, so typically folks will know the second and third digits in the designation, so to keep this long-winded digression going, I'm just going to read down the list here that I got from, HK actually. So, okay, so this was originally an HK-93. We're gonna focus right now on that first digit, which would be like the 9, and each number will have a different meaning for the technical denotes. So we're going to go through that first digit real quick. And I'm just going to read down the list. There is 9 different digits denoting different technical aspects of the gun. So a 1 will mean it's a box-fed machine gun. A 2 will mean it's a belt-fed machine gun. A 3 will be a select-fire carbine. A 4 will be a self-loading rifle, bolt actions. A 5 will be a machine pistol, like a submachine gun. A 6 will be a grenade launcher. A 7 will be a linkless fed light machine gun, like their disintegrating belts. 8 would be a special magazine fed light machine gun. And 9 would be a semi-automatic paramilitary rifle. So the second digit in that, the HK-93. So, you kind of, in public, you ignore that first digit, the generation digit. So this would be the third digit technically, but you know, as we know, just on the market, it would be like the second digit, if that makes sense to you. It denotes the caliber. So there are 9 different caliber designations from HK as well. So we'll go down this list real quick. A 1 means it's a 7.62 by 51 NATO. 2 means it's a 7.62 by 3.9. 3 means it's a 5.56 by 45 NATO. 4 is for handgun cartridges, which would be, you know, 9mm, 40 Smith & Wesson, 45 ACP. 5 is a 50 BMG. 6 is the HK 4.6 round, you know, like the MP7s. 7 would be 300 Blackout. 8 would be a 37mm grenade, and 40 would be a 40mm grenade. So, not too complicated once you learn the nomenclature. Some of them you never really hear about, you know, but, you know, we know publicly a different designation than they will know internally. So, for example, internally an MP5 will be called an HK54. Maybe, so you might be thinking, well, then the HK416, that doesn't quite add up. You know, it doesn't shoot a 4.6 round. You know, that it's marketing and, you know, the loose conventions I was talking about. 416 is actually a combination of the HK-M4 and HK-M16, which at the time HK was developing their takes on the AR-15. However, internally, the 416 is actually designated the HK-333. So what does that mean? It's a third generation full-sized select fire carbine firing a 5.56 by 45 round. So now that we know what we're talking about nomenclature-wise, I'd like to bring it back to the rifle we're talking about today, and quickly I'd like to mention, without going into huge detail, there were Turkish licensed copies that are being imported into the US today, as well as variants produced both in Thailand and Myanmar. Both HK factory-produced 53s and 33s are still used by police, military, and insurgent forces all over the world today, including the U.S. Border Patrol and, you know, Kurdistan Workers' Party in Syria and Iraq. There was also a U.S. licensed copy called the T223, produced by Harrington and Richardson, which was actually used by in combat by Navy SEALs during the Vietnam War. So, like the AK, I guess you could say it's a rifle that fights the good fight and the bad fight. With that overview brings us here to the Century Arms C93, and retaining the HK type nomenclature, this rifle is the reason I brought up the international variants. Most folks will refer to this as a civilian HK93, but more accurately, it's a Thai Type 11 actually. With some American parts converted to semi-auto. The C93 came standard with a 40-round magazine. However, as previously mentioned, it did get issued with 30 and 40-round magazines. I tried and failed to find out where the magazines were produced for the C93 imports. Tried and failed. So it is completely possible they bought these in bulk from, they bought the magazines in bulk from Thailand. Completely possible. But HK magazines are widely available. The 5.56 magazines for these guns are widely available in both 30 and 40 round variants. I mean, you can go multiple websites and pick them up right now. They are a little pricey. You know, they're about 75, 80 bucks. Very high quality magazines, as light as they feel, but they are available. They are available. So I'm really not sure where Century was sourcing the magazines for these. The U.S. civilian market C93 features a 16.25 or a 18.9 inch barrel. However, you'll most typically see the 16.25, and also it does have the addition of a carry handle. The rifle is slightly heavier than your standard AR, but ergonomically it's very comfortable. The trigger does have a nice break, but you know, it's not the fastest trigger around. It's just not, you know, it's got a little bit of mush, so it's kind of hard to go fast on it. The C93 does feature a trigger pack with an AR style grip, as you can see, very AR style grip, but it's actually got some more finger grooves in there and doesn't have that spiky finger groove that most people just sand off. I kind of like it only with gloves, really, because I mean, barehanded, that shit kind of hurts. But Magpul actually does make a replacement trigger pack for these guys that has the Magpul Mo grip. So it's definitely an improvement for the handling and ergonomics, because these things do have a bit of a complicated reload and malfunction clearing procedure, because you're gonna have to like, let's say you get a stovepipe, you're gonna have to drop the mag, hold that sucker in your hand, and you're gonna have to pull this back, shake it out, pop your mag in, then you're good to go again. So, it's a lot of steps there, and pretty easy to fuck up. But, like like a Magpul Mo grip, honestly, those feel really nice. So, it's fine doing it like this and just tucking it under, but, with a Magpul Mo grip, I'm very familiar with those. I could totally just hold this thing like this and do my reload, to tell you the truth. But I don't have one of those Magpul packs. In the future, that'd be cool. I wouldn't mind building out this rifle a little bit. I really do love it in factory form, though. It's pretty cool. So the sights are height and windage adjustable, but unfortunately, mine are not working right now. My barrel's seized up. Yeah, parts kit gun. I don't, sure I could pull it off and fix it and everything, but frankly, the rifle is zeroed real well right now, so I kind of don't want to fuck with it. And to tell you the truth, I don't personally ever really use the apertures with, I don't like apertures. I prefer the notch, and being used to AKs, I can get around with a notch pretty well at this point. So for me, mostly this rifle's plinking, but like I said last year, I did intend to run this gun at Lethal Weapons. I am looking for a replacement extractor spring. I was trying to find a PTR one, but I just a few minutes ago went ahead and ordered an HK one. That it is a notorious problem with all of these guns, the whole family of them. The extractor springs suck. They really suck. Even HK internal data on an MP5 will tell you to change that thing after like 10,000 rounds, and all them Navy SEALs and shit in back of the day that were using those, they'd change that extractor spring every operation because of how unreliable these things are. I don't know how much I got out of this one because I'm still running off the extractor spring that came with this thing, which definitely was a PTR spring, and the reason I tend to notice just a quality differences though is because I do own an MC51, which has some pretty violent action and tends to fucking hate extractor springs, and the actual internal HK data on the MC51 says you only get 800 rounds out of the extractor spring, for real. So, I popped a PTR one in there, and I ended up getting, about 1200. And it is true, man, about the 700 round mark, you start getting a little stovepipe action with the MC51. So they weren't kidding. They're definitely not kidding, You may not want to listen to them about, everything, but listen to the Germans. Sorry, Pascal, we're not going to make a shitload of goddamn Nazi jokes today. That's definitely not. I think that shit's cringe. We already made one, and, it was really more directed at Commando blog, because I noticed in that last video, that kind of perked up a few ears. I saw your comments, obviously I responded to a couple of them, but... I don't want to do that. I find it kind of poor taste. Every time somebody's got a German friend, they can't stop fucking talking. Nazi. Shut up, dude. Let it rest. They paid their fucking price, dude. Christ, they were under occupation for many fucking years. Let them fucking chill, dude. So, like I said, I am starting to have a little bit of extractor spring problems with this guy. I am going to bring it out and run it at Texas Kalashnikov tomorrow, knowing I might have a jam here or there, but practice clearing jams with this thing. I really just want to train. And primarily, I just kind of use this as like a range toy and a plinker, you know? Like if I'm walking around in the woods or something like that, I bring this gun and have some fun with it. Just shit like that, you know? As I'm admitting, you know, the extractor spring on this gun is not something I keep up with as much as I really should. But the symptoms of the extractor spring going out, they're fairly obvious once you're a little acclimated to shooting HK stuff. You know, it's a very particular stovepipe it tends to get. So really, I did not intend on doing any kind of like 2-hour episode on this or anything like that. I kind of just wanted to see how it was, you know, writing out the basic, you know, info and everything, and giving you a bit of history on it, because, you know, you don't need to know like details like what color was Peter Paul Mauser's hair and shit like that, you know, like we don't need to go that in depth, but you know, it was probably blonde. So I hope you guys have enjoyed this little overview of the Century C93, and I had to do a bit of research on this one, definitely. I am not a research genius. I am not a genius writer, and I am definitely not an HK genius. So, you know, there is a possibility I might have flubbed something here or there. If I did, you know, more than welcome to call it out in the comments. I just love these overcomplicated pieces of shit that much. My sources were a bit varied, from a couple HK books I own to, you know, like going through the articles on Wikipedia's source lists for various HK systems. And out of curiosity, I also did go over to forums and took a look at posts back, you know, in like 2015, 2010, and saw what people were saying about these rifles. And you know, during the research of this, I was able to confirm a few things and disprove a few things I had heard before, like these being made in Vietnam, definitely not Thailand. Well, made in the U.S., but come from